I told you. I told you Himeko wasn't going to die. I knew it. Now, anyways, let's get into the actual proper video. So, Star Rails version 4.4. It's my Schrödinger version. Basically, my heart loves it, while my mind has some problems with it. I've seen lots of comments, people complaining Himeko didn't die, people praising Trailblazer's development, and, most of all, slander towards Welt. And I'm here for it. Also, before we start, I wanted to thank all of you who saw my previous video. I know 1.5k views isn't a lot, but for me, it is. I wasn't expecting it to get so many views. And if you don't mind, please consider subscribing or leaving a comment to help a bit this little channel. Thank you very much, and now let's get to the actual proper video. We finally reached the first turning point in Plan Arcadia, version 4.4 story. And my gosh, what a wild ride it was! We start right where we left off, with Asat Pramad locking Himeko in his domain expansion, Trailblazer departing alongside Blade and Silverwolf, and Plan Arcadia in shambles thanks to Asat Pramad's aura farming. This is fine! Love Plan Arcadia's new map, all in shambles, and we go around the destroyed city trying to reunite with our companions. Remember that scene in which Welt, Danhang and Yao Wang seem to be trapped near the Voracity's husk alongside Asat Pramad? Well, forget about it. Blade can easily get those three out of there. Nice. Once we reach Perdido Station, by the way, I love how the name literally means lost in Spanish. Well, once we reach the station, we reunite with the whole crew and we assemble our plan. Meanwhile, Asat Pramad goes with his daughter to have a family trip in his domain expansion, in which we get revealed the whole Himeko backstory. Himeko and the Trailblazer go confront Asat Pramad, and after a fake-out death that no one believed. Also, by the way, Evanesia is basically in a comatose state trying to sustain Plan Arcadia. Trailblazer confronts Asat Pramad. We get to play Kafka's interrogation scene 2.0, we confront Asat Pramad, we get the typical fake-out we get in all boss fights in which after the first two phases everything fades to dark and we apparently lost. Trailblazer speaks with itself and realizes they are trans. And they get back to the battle, give Himeko a cool armor, and after that we defeat Asat Pramad with the power of friendship! Yeah, that's the full version samurai. Now, of course I'm joking, I liked it quite a lot. However, I'd like to talk about some points I think are pretty important. Now, let's get into them. How I Met Your Father. Honestly, Asat Pramad was probably one of my favorite parts this patch. He's a villain with an actual connection to the main characters, not only Himeko, but as a former Express navigator, helped us establish a correlation between him and the main characters Arontum couldn't have. So, nice Tarell! He's a villain I enjoy watching, with a cool design and aura. My congratulations to his voice actor, he did an amazing job. He's more of a, lol, why not kind of villain, while at the same time being someone who has lost all his faith in the former path he traveled. He's a powerful force whose whole reason why he doesn't kill us is because it wouldn't be funny. He enjoys suffering and wants to give all the pleasure he can to his victims before stripping away all the happiness they have within them. And that achieves both good and bad results. In one hand, it's made pretty clear he's a cruel being who doesn't deserve anything good in the world. But at the same time, seeing how our main characters escape and escape and escape of them alive, yeah, it stings a little bit. Because let's be honest, so far we've managed to stop all of his plans. Now, I know how the patch ends, however, I'll talk about it in the final section of the video. So that's why, in a way, I have mixed feelings about him. Honestly, I loved the section in which we got to interrogate him. The fact that we can actually get different results depending on how the dice rolls, it's a very neat detail. And of course, since I'm a very heavy lore enjoyer, I asked the most important questions right away.
Mr. Asat Pramad, have you ever been in love?
What did you just say?
Sorry, but I'm really curious. Have you ever fallen in love?
Overall, my rating of Asat Pramad would be a 7 out of 10. However, in a story, the villain isn't everything. Of course, we have our main characters. My gosh, I love Trailblazer this version. Ever since I started playing Starrel, I've been a pretty huge Trailblazer fan. Who isn't gonna love this little and silly raccoon? However, I did acknowledge that up until the later parts of Amphorius, Starrel's MC was a bit of a self-insert protagonist, although with much more character than other self-insert protagonists. However, ever since version 3.4 or 3.5, I'm not able to say that, and this version has proved it pretty clear. I loved all the moments in which I'm saying she because I played with female Trailblazer in all my accounts, in which she showed character, unwilling to accept such fate, and crying for Himeko. Gosh, that scene between those two is super sweet. I'll talk about it more in the Himeko section. I'm glad we get to see Trailblazer vulnerable. It really makes feel her human. In a way, previously it was a bit more hard to get. I hadn't had such a roller coaster of emotions ever since version 3.7. Gosh, if I keep talking like this, it will seem like self-insert is my favorite word. In 4.2 we got a pretty good balance between Silverwolf, Evanesia, and the Trailblazer, the featured characters, giving a Trailblazer the spotlight without taking it from the featured characters. In version 4.3, I adored the interactions with the Stellaron Hunters. It really helps fleshing out that Trailblazer has another story besides the one we're seeing, that they were actually someone in their past life. And with this version 4.4, gosh, I love them. Honestly, I think the emotional vibes only will reach you if you really feel that bond with the Trailblazer, and if you don't, it will feel like a very bland attempt at trying to cause emotions. In my case, I do feel it. I feel kind of the same bond I feel with Kiana from Honkai Impact, and yeah, honestly, I'm all here for it. I hope next versions continue developing the Trailblazer, because if they do, they could very well be one of my favorite protagonists in gacha. We finally reached the main character of version 4.4. Screw you, Seacourt. Screw you for making me cry like a little baby at 7 a.m. in the morning of a Wednesday. Honestly, I loved Himeko's part. Her moments with Motoko were so sweet, and I cried like a little baby in those scenes. Now, one of the main topics was how Himeko would die this version. As I told you, I didn't think so, and this version proved me right. It wasn't exactly in the way I thought it'd be. She didn't fuse with Motoko, but rather they exchanged fates. And I really liked that plot twist. The previous version had set expectations she would be an imaginary, but it was set throughout the eyes of Asat Pramad. Himeko didn't get to answer that question. It wasn't until recently that we discovered it, alongside Asat Pramad. The scene in which we bid farewell with her is... I was crying because although I knew she wouldn't die because again she hadn't gotten her Himeko Nova form, I was crying. The voice actress did an incredible job setting up the expectation she was gonna die. That moment feels painful, and the background music doesn't help at all. For moments I thought she might actually die, that maybe Himeko Nova was gonna be her final attempt at trying to save us, and that then we would have to bid farewell. Luckily, that didn't happen, but at the same time, gosh, it hurt. Now, let's address the main discussion surrounding Himeko. Should she have died? Lots of people have been claiming this patch has felt like a whole power of friendship along My Little Pony style. Honestly, I don't think she should have died, and I'm glad she didn't. This doesn't necessarily have to be Honkai Impact 3rd, and many people were expecting that. People were expecting that she die so Trailblazer could have character development, but that's not necessary. We shouldn't forget how Trailblazer experienced a lot in Amphorius, and building stakes doesn't necessarily mean killing characters. Although throughout the previous 4.x versions we got to know Himeko little by little, it still felt like it wasn't enough. We only got to know her past. And although for me it was enough to fall in love with her, I get why for many people it wouldn't be enough. So, had she been killed here, many people wouldn't have felt that loss. I'd much rather maybe get another SP form, and if then the situation requires it, yeah, maybe that's when we'll have to say goodbye. Since we got a happy Rumi in the previous section of the video, now we're getting angry Rumi. Really, Hoyo? What's the need to keep taunting us with accurate lore-wise wealth if you are not gonna give it to us? This version was the ideal opportunity to make Welt shine. Himeko was in danger. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Welt's whole motive to come to Starville to try and find a version of Himeko he could save? Why is he barely featured in the patch? He only appears alongside the rest of the Express members. Like, Dunhang and March, it's okay if don't get the spotlight, they got it in Amphorius. And in this patch, we got some tiny moments of Sunday spotlight addressing how he has become a nameless. So, why we don't also give the spotlight to Welt? One of my little nitpicks that aren't actual nitpicks but just my opinion in this patch was how the story was too short. Like, we got from the 8-hour story quest in Amphorius to a barely 4-hour one. It took me around 4 hours to finish. So, why not use a little bit more time to flesh out Welt, even if it's just barely some interactions with Himeko? It would have done quite a lot of him. What pisses me off is that he appears in the promotional material or like in the posters of the version with his Star of Eden, and he barely uses it. He only uses it off screen in 4.3 to conjure some of the devices Yao Wang needs. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Just a Honkai Impact third fangirl. And no, I'm actually not very deep into Honkai Impact. Last time I played, I was in the, if I'm not wrong, the Fuhu arc. However, I know what Welt is capable of. So I think it's a wasted opportunity. Plus, attention, now I'll be talking about some leaks we've been getting about versions 5.x. So proceed with caution. There are leaks that tell that in version 5.x we'll be getting an Acheron, a Firefly, and a Kafka SP. No well to be seen. So, when will this man's time to shine come? Now, so far, considering all the recording I have done, besides the wild part, it seems like I've enjoyed version 4.4. So, why was I divided in the opening section of the video? I think it's because, although I've loved version 4.4, I can't help but feel a bit worried about the upcoming versions. I'm worried about how we'll continue from where we left off. As you all know, next version we're getting Robin and Aventuring California Girls SP, since we'll be heading off to Astropolis, which is basically the IPC's vacation resort. And how did this version end? With a huge cliffhanger, with the Voracity's husk being awakened and seeming that it was all part of Asat Pramad's plan. That's a pretty big contrast in there. We'll have to wait for the 4.5 live stream and trailer to get some of the doubts brushed off, but still, the contrast is there. Plus, we shouldn't forget that in order to save Himeko, Trailblazer had to override the wish Himeko made with her own wish. That for sure has consequences, because, like we learned in Bellabok's story, wishing on a Stellaron always backfires. A part of me is worried that the whole Voracity's Husk awakening gets solved in the first 5 or so minutes next version. Now, I have faith in Starrel. I highly doubt they are gonna do that. However, if they did, I swear I'm gonna lose it. Plus, we shouldn't forget about the Evanesha and Yao Wang situation, who, again, we don't know what will happen to. Although I think it's pretty obvious none of them is gonna die. They didn't kill Jiao Chu. I doubt they're killing Evanesha or Yao Wang. At the most, the general who's gonna die, according to Yao Wang's prophecy, is gonna be the zooming one who's clearly an NPC. I personally hope that next version immediately kicks off with the cutscene where we all have to abandon Plan Arcadia, incapable of saving it, and because of that, we have to travel to the IPC's headquarters to officially join the Anti-Destruction Alliance in order to find a solution. That's what I personally think would be the most logical move to make, but who knows? Also, although this is more of my personal theory slash preference, it would be pretty cool if, as a part of Asat Pramad's plan, he fused with the Voracity's husk, and then next time, the next weekly boss would be him fused with that said Aeon. It would be pretty cool, honestly. And that way, Asat Pramad's menace wouldn't have felt like a single or like a two-patch menace. In a similar way with what happened with Dottore in Genshin Impact. And although I know that I just said a few minutes ago that killing characters doesn't equal raising the stakes, I do think that maybe killing one or two characters or leaving them permanently disabled wouldn't cost a thing. Because, not counting the Chrysaors, who we all know they're gonna revive, minus Arini, we don't have any dead playable characters. Well, Misha and Gallagher, but they're 4 stars. And seeing how all the characters nowadays are 5 stars, maybe it would leave a higher of an impact. Don't know, that's all my opinion. I like to know yours in the comments. So, here's my little 4.4 review. Hoping you enjoyed it. Sorry if the thumbnail was a bit of a clickbait, but I've seen lots of people claiming this whole patch was a huge power of friendship, while I don't think it's that way. So yeah, please consider liking and subscribing it. I want to give lots of thank yous. I wasn't expecting the previous video to reach over 1K views, and it made me very happy seeing how quickly it has reached that goal. So, yeah, hoping you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider subscribing and sharing it. And see you on the next one. Bye bye.